when you were out there doing that work for Qualcomm, no matter what it could be, what was it like? What were the people like? What were the situations like? Especially in like West Africa, you were talking about that a bit previously, but what was it like in those areas compared to here?
Great question. It's funny because one thing I've learned with a lot of the international travel that I've done is that you go places that you think are going to be incredibly foreign, and it turns out people are just people. Like, we're all pretty much the same in really cool ways. That said, there's obviously some stark differences and contrasts in certain societies and certain cultures. I've been really, really, really blessed to be able to see, like, my goal, I'll tell you, my goal by 30 was that I was on every continent, right? And I almost did it. I'm 33, and I've gotten to 5 continents. So I still haven't been, believe it or not, to South America, which is right here. And then I haven't been to Antarctica, which, you know.
That's not.
But in any case, I say that because, you know, looking at some of the Asian countries I've been to, mostly Southeast Asia, but a little bit like Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, I've never been to mainland China, but that culture, you know, even within like that category, like saying Asian cultures, like Asia's really big, and from Malaysia to Indonesia to the Philippines to Singapore, like although they're all very close in proximity, there's really interesting nuances between everyone that I've met with, and like the things that you do or the things that you say or the things that are normal or not normal. And even that, think about like downtown San Diego versus Ramona. Very different, right? Like you're gonna meet different people, you'll do different things, you'll eat different food. So that's just the same too when I go, you know, if you fly into Manila, the Philippines, the capital city, is very different when you drive 5 hours or fly to another island. But I found some really, 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 really incredible people. And I think within all of the travel I've done, like that's the coolest thing, is knowing and hearing stories like this. And from my job, it's really seeing the transformation that takes place when someone is exposed to something that can enhance what they're doing, right? So like, yes, someone's being educated, but then you give them this tool, this mobile device, and you're like, oh my gosh, like their minds are opened, or like a new learning behavior is created, or just like life change, right? So hearing some of those stories are really neat. And then, you know, so that's Southeast Asia, but then moving over to Africa, even from West Africa to East Africa, and I kind of swapped those. Well, for you, there you go, West Africa to East Africa, even to Southern Africa. It's so neat to see similarities, but yet some like unique differences between languages or people groups or the way people dress or like the culture of a place. But I think a really, really neat theme that I've seen throughout all of this is resiliency in the human spirit. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
it makes sense, yeah.
Even when you see people that you maybe expect to be not ostracized, but I think you're saying marginalized, right? Like people that you think, oh wow, like they're still behind the game in terms of like resources, or like the typical like, oh, we're doing development work, so this is the group of people that need help. Like even working with those people, and those people being anyone at any given point in time, right? I just have found that people are so loving and open and acceptable and hospitable and encouraging amidst even the worst circumstances for them. You know, like when I go over and I'm working with people, it's like I feel more blessed and more invested in a lot of times than I could ever go over and help anyone with, if that makes any kind of sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want me to give you like explicit examples, or stories, which I'm happy to.
Well, I think that, you know, do you think that there is a kind of, a bit, I guess you could say cultural appropriation, but cultural problem in this country where, yes, we do have a democracy in which if you're a citizen, you can vote anybody from such a multicultural nation we have here in America. Yet, right. A lot of the times we have students, especially high school students, who really, the only, I guess, lens they have of another culture is one from a textbook, one from written by a
Yeah.
few dozen people
Yep.
who wrote 1 or 2 chapters on what they learned from their professor in their textbook. And it just seems like, you have only one lens where you look at the South Asian culture, the Russian culture, the this, the that, and like how the Russian culture inspired the Tsar and like all that, the communism and stuff like that, where
Right.
you have this one-sided view of the rest of the world, when in reality, they can offer us so much. So what's your input on that, I guess?
Well, I think there's two sides to that coin, right? So that, yes, there may be like a one-sided view that we get taught necessarily, right? But at the same time, like, if you grew up in Singapore, you're probably learning a lot about Singapore that the rest of the world doesn't know about, right? So it's like almost anywhere you go, like, what you're taught is what the people around you know. And like you said, like, what's been passed down to them, right? Like, that's what they know because that's what's been perpetuated and that's what's been given to them. We live in a time that is pretty incredible because we are exposed to so much more than like even our parents' generation. I'm lumping us in together. We are clearly in slightly different age groups, but if you know what I mean, if you understand that, there just wasn't as much information available in the past. So like if you base your kind of one-sidedness on what you've been taught, like there was only so much available to learn. So if that continues to be taught, then I think there's more open-mindedness now. Definitely. Because there has to be, right? We've got Twitter, which is like a news feed for a lot of people, but it's everyone from around the world. So although you might be learning one thing in school or one thing in your history class, you also have all of these outside opinions and views and sources to kind of meld together your own opinion. But I do agree. I think that everyone should be exposed to as much like a plethora of sources of information as possible. And I think I actually talked about this with a cousin of mine not too long ago because, I grew up in New York when I was younger. So most of my schooling was in New York. But then I came to California and it was like it was almost as if I was missing a piece of history because I had been taught New York history. So people out here were like, no, we learned California history. And I like totally missed out on a lot of the background of that, right? Because even within our own country, from state to state, we're taught different things, which is just kind of an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, I would say I do like when I travel and I meet people that are well-versed in world information or world history. And I do see that a lot in other countries where they know stuff about the US and they know stuff about their own country. They know stuff about this and that and the other, a little bit more so than I would say some of our youth or some of our kids are taught necessarily. It's neither here nor there. It's just something. But I do agree that yes, the better and more exposed we are at a young age, I think it's great because it also encourages like acceptance and tolerance, not in like a PC, like everyone needs to be tolerant of everything way, but